Hey everyone, KG Milgoza here, and here's 10 life-changing Logic Pro tips. So if we jump over to Logic, if you hit Command, comma, we can bring up the settings menu. And if we jump over to the advanced tab, just something you should enable directly is to enable the complete features. This really makes Logic Pro the formidable DAW that it actually should be. So just enable it and go from there. All right, so now if we jump back over to Logic, if we head over to the General tab and underneath Editing there, you can see underneath right mouse button, you have is an assignable tool. It starts off as Opens Tool menu, but if you put assignable tool, then you can change it up here to be anything you actually like. Well, anything that's in that menu. And I actually personally like to use it to be a marquee tool, where I used to have it where I hit Command to open up the marquee tool, but now I have the Command opening up the scissor tool, so I can just go ahead and chop and move anything I need, or if I need to duplicate it. The same with the marquee tool, I use it kind of similar. So this makes it so we have two tools on our mouse, and we have a third tool using the Command. And just go in there and find what works with your workflow. All right, back in Logic, if we hit Command, comma again to go into the same menu, underneath General Editing, you will find Fade Tool Click Zones. Usually it's clicked off. We're gonna click it on. And what that allows me to do is go to any audio, and I can hover over the top left or the top right, and that allows me to bring a fade in, and or I could do a fade out. And bam, and with that, it allows me to assign a different tool to the mouse while still having access to fades when I need them. Another thing you can do with the fade tool, since we have the right mouse button assigned to something different, we have to hit Control, but if we hit Control click, we can actually change that to a speed up or a slow down. And that kind of does something like this. Even though it's bass, it's not gonna be so interesting. But that can be a really cool effect, maybe for an intro of a song or something like that. Let's see, I kind of just pasted it into this demo I kind of have going. It's nothing extravagant, but you'll get the idea of what you can do with this tool. So there you go, fade tool without needing to go and search for the fade tool. Okay, next up has to do with recording. And I absolutely hate when I'm recording when the metronome is also playing on playback. So now that I hit play right now, you don't want to be hearing this. So what you can do is go over here and right click over the metronome, and you can turn off simple mode. So simple mode is usually clicked on, so now we click it off, and now you have access to click while recording and click while playing. So if I turn off click while playing, but then let's say I was recording on that track, there you go. Now you don't have the metronome annoying you on playback, and you don't have to switch it on and off all the time, and you can just go up there and change it if you want to. Okay, next up has to do with MIDI. When you normally play back in the middle of notes, you actually don't hear them until it hits the beginning of the next note. How you can remedy that is by hitting Option P. You're going to bring up your project settings, and underneath here you can go MIDI, and then you can find Chase, and then if you hit Notes, now it's actually going to, I guess, chase them, so to say. So even if I play in the middle of the notes, for me, that was actually super life-changing, because usually you have to hit the beginning note of the MIDI for it to trigger, and whether you have keys or samples or whatever's going on, now even when you're writing something, you're demoing something on playback, even if you don't be at the very beginning of that MIDI, you're still going to hear that, so you kind of have a better perspective on what you're doing. Alrighty, next we actually want to open our editor, our piano roll, whatever you want to call it. You can either double click the MIDI, you can also hit P to open and close it, or you can even hit this your little pencil kind of looking thing up here. So now that we have the MIDI roll open or piano roll open, if I were to go over to this view button and then I can hit note labels. So now it actually tells me what all these MIDI notes are rather than just trying to guess or trying to look, which can really take a lot of time. When you start working with some more MIDI or you're doing some more sampling, you'll realize actually just seeing those will help you write and do things faster. Also, you can highlight all the notes, and if you look over here, it will actually tell you what kind of chord is being played right there. Another handy tip. Okay, the next up might be my absolute favorite. I might have already said that, but this one is for real, okay? So if we jump back over to Logic, and we're gonna learn something called track stacks. So first I'll show you what's kind of going on in this demo project I have. So you see this little arrow, it's actually gonna open up the track stack that I've already created for guitars. And with that, since this is a summing stack, I've also created a bus. So now I can actually put effects that will affect all of those tracks on that bus. And you can do that for anything you want, for instrument tracks, vocals, guitars, bass, absolutely anything. It's super handy. You can also just create a folder stack, which means you don't have the bus where they're all getting, sent over to a bus, but you still are going to organize those tracks. So all you have to do is right click on them, and then you have the folder stack or the summing stack options. You saw what the summing stack did. So now if we hit folder stack, now it's stacked both of those into a nice little neat folder. And you still have a fader to adjust both those tracks together, but you won't have the bus unless you hit the summing stack. This is something that's very handy, both for your workflow when you're writing, but also while mixing. Rather than creating separate buses and constantly needing to keep track of them, you keep everything kind of organized in folders and kind of tightly packed, and you can do what you need with them when you need to do it. All right, next up, you want to head back up to that record tab on the top. And if you check out overlapping MIDI recordings, you can find a few different options for what happens when you're recording MIDI. Maybe you're playing drums in, maybe you're playing piano, saxophone, whatever it is. So if I have the cycle on and I put create take folder, what's going to happen instead, it's going to be very similar to when we do audio and you have the take folders happening that you can choose from after. So let's turn on our low latency. Forgive the volume difference or anything, but you'll see what will happen if I record now. Okay, so yeah, nothing exactly beautiful happened there. But if you look, now I have take folders and I can actually swap between them. Sorry, my keyboard is kind of off to the side, but you get the idea of what's going on there, and you can use it to what you feel will help you or benefit you the most. So I like the dark aesthetic of Logic, but something that always bothered me was in the piano roll, if we open that up, it was actually always this kind of dark gray color. And that was really hard to see for me, especially not having the greatest eyesight. So if we go back to Command, comma, again, and we can go open up the, let's see, where was it? The view option. Here you're gonna have underneath editors, you have bright background for the piano. You can kind of see it a bit easier, but do whatever works for you. Personally, I like this way more, so yeah. That's how I'm going to leave it. Okay, the next thing might be somewhat self-explanatory, especially for the more advanced users. But if you didn't know, just up here on the right, you kind of have this, I don't know, kind of clock. I'm not actually even sure what it is. A little wheel with some dots. And that's the low latency monitoring mode. So if you're writing with like guitar or piano or anything like that, it's going to make sure you have the lowest latency possible. It may disable some plugins, so you may kind of miss some sound, but you're actually not going to have a latency, which is going to make it much easier for you to record on time and have a better feeling while you're recording. All right, we're almost done now. And if you head up to the top of the menu here, you see this little arrow. You can actually just right click kind of anywhere, I think. And you can find the customized control bar and display. So right now you have my defaults that I've set up, but you can put them to whatever you need them to. So if you hit the customized control bar display, oof, that's a mouthful, then you can kind of see you have all these different tools or options to have up there. So whether I'm working on a laptop screen, I might take some of these away, or I might add some on where I'm on a big screen. You have things like auto punch, replace. You have that low latency monitoring. Obviously, I can't talk anymore. Tuner, solo, count and metronome, all the stuff. Just go in there, dive in, find out what you need, what's for your workflow. That's another one of those things, personal preference. Get what you need. Alrighty then, there's 10 Logic Pro tips that in my opinion were life-changing. Till next time, stay heavy.